In the heart of the Old World, an empire that had stood for 1,000 years was breathing its last. This was not Rome in its glory, but its heir, the Byzantine Empire, a flickering candle in a gathering storm. Its territories had been chipped away, its coffers emptied, and its ancient capital, Constantinople, the once impenetrable queen of cities, now stood as a lonely bastion of a fading Christian legacy, surrounded by a sea of rivals. The eagle of Rome had grown old, its wings too weary to command the skies. The world was holding its breath, waiting for the vacuum of power to be filled. Who would dare to claim the mantle of Caesar? The answer came not from the established powers of Europe, but from the vast, windswept steppes of Central Asia. Driven west by the relentless expansion of the Mongol hordes, nomadic Turkic tribes poured into the Anatolian peninsula. They were warriors, horsemen, and followers of a new dynamic faith, Islam. Among the chaos of competing warlords and crumbling Byzantine authority, one small principality, began to distinguish itself. It was led by a man whose name would echo through the ages, Osman Ghazi. Legend tells of Osman's dream, a moon rising from the chest of a holy man and entering his own, from which a magnificent tree then sprouted. Its branches grew to shade the entire world, covering mountains and rivers, cities and continents. This was no mere dream. It was a prophecy of destiny, a divine mandate for a global empire. From this single powerful vision, a dynasty was born. Osman and his followers, the Ottomans, began a campaign of conquest, fueled by religious zeal, strategic brilliance, and an unwavering belief in their fate. For over a century, the Ottomans consolidated their power, swallowing their rivals and pushing ever deeper into Byzantine territory. Then, in 1453, the moment of destiny arrived. The 21-year-old Sultan, Mehmed II, a genius of military strategy and engineering, fixed his gaze on the ultimate prize, Constantinople itself. He cast cannons larger than any the world had ever seen, and after a grueling 53-day siege, achieved the impossible. The Theodosian walls were breached. The last Roman emperor fell in battle. Mehmed rode his horse into the city, not merely as a conqueror, but as the inheritor of its legacy. He was now Mehmed the Conqueror, and his new capital, Istanbul, would become the heart of a new world order. From this epicenter, the empire exploded across the known world. For the next 6 centuries, the Ottoman Empire would not just rule, but redefine 3 continents. Its domain stretched from the gates of Vienna in the north to the shores of the Indian Ocean in the south, from the deserts of Arabia to the mountains of the Balkans. It was a mosaic of peoples, a melting pot of cultures, faiths, and languages, all governed by a complex and often surprisingly tolerant administration. Christians, Jews, and Muslims lived and worked side by side under the Sultan's authority. This empire was a military titan, a center of artistic innovation, and a political powerhouse that shaped the course of global history. But like all great powers, it contained the seeds of its own destruction. This is the story of that epic journey, the story of its meteoric rise from the ashes of Byzantium, and its long, dramatic, and inevitable collapse.
Osman the Fun and the birth of the Ottomans in Anatolia, their expansion under early sultans.
Mehmet II's siege, cannons blasting the walls, the end of the Byzantine Empire, Constantinople becoming Istanbul.
Suleiman the Magnificent, expansion into Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Culture, law, and architecture, Hagia Sophia, Topkapi Palace, mosques.
Elite troops, Devshirme system, their role in Ottoman power.
Military stagnation, corruption, loss of territories, rise of European rivals.
By the 19th century, the once mighty Ottoman Empire was known by a grim moniker coined by Tsar Nicholas I of Russia, the sick man of Europe. This wasn't just a taunt, it was a geopolitical reality. The empire was hemorrhaging territory, its economy was crippled by debt to European banks, and its central authority was crumbling. The great powers of Europe, Britain, France, Russia, and Austria-Hungary, circled like vultures, each maneuvering to protect their own interests in the inevitable collapse. This complex web of rivalries, known as the Eastern Question, turned the fate of the Ottomans into a dangerous international chess game. The most immediate threat came from within its own European provinces. Inspired by nationalism, the Christian populations of the Balkans yearned for independence. One by one, they rose in revolt. The final devastating blow came with the Balkan Wars of 1912 and 1913. A coalition of Balkan states shattered the remaining Ottoman armies in Europe, pushing the empire's borders back to the very edge of Istanbul. The loss was catastrophic, not just in land, but in prestige and population, creating a massive wave of refugees fleeing into the Anatolian heartland. In this climate of desperation, the empire made its final, fatal gamble. In 1914, the Young Turk government, led by the reckless Enver Pasha, allied the empire with Germany in World War I. They dreamed of winning back lost territories and shaking off the economic stranglehold of Britain and France. Instead, they plunged their people into a 4-year nightmare. The Ottomans fought with grim tenacity on multiple fronts, from the Caucasus against Russia to the deserts of Mesopotamia against the British, and most famously, in the costly defense of Gallipoli. By 1918, the empire was broken. The subsequent armistice was a total surrender, and Allied warships sailed into Istanbul. The victors began carving up the Turkish heartland of Anatolia itself. As the Sultan's government sat powerless, a new resistance ignited. From the ashes of defeat rose a brilliant and fiercely patriotic general, Mustafa Kemal. Having earned fame as the hero of Gallipoli, he rallied what was left of the army and the Turkish people to defy the occupation and fight for a new vision. Not the restoration of empire, but the creation of a sovereign Turkish nation-state. Their victory was absolute. In 1922, the Grand National Assembly, led by Kemal, abolished the Sultanate, bringing over 600 years of Ottoman dynastic rule to an end. A year later, the Treaty of Lausanne secured international recognition for the new borders of Turkey. On October 29, 1923, the Republic of Turkey was officially proclaimed. Mustafa Kemal, now honored with the name Ataturk, Father of the Turks, became its first president, launching a series of radical secular reforms that would forever separate the new nation from its imperial past. The sick man of Europe was finally gone, and in its place, a modern republic was born.
The Ottoman Empire, a titan forged in the fires of ambition and faith, did not simply vanish from the world stage. Its end was not a single cataclysmic event, but a long, slow erosion spanning centuries. It is a story of internal decay, of a gilded cage where sultans became prisoners of their own court, and a janissary corps that devolved from the empire's sharpest sword into a parasitic force, resisting the very progress needed for survival. It was also a tale of relentless external pressures. The rising powers of Europe, supercharged by the Industrial Revolution, began to eclipse the empire's military and economic might. The cannons that once shattered the walls of Constantinople were now outmatched by new artillery, and the trade routes the Ottomans once dominated were bypassed by ocean-faring vessels. Simultaneously, the potent waves of nationalism, an idea born in the West, crashed against the empire's multi-ethnic shores, inspiring its diverse peoples, Greeks, Serbs, Bulgarians, Arabs, to seek their own destinies, pulling the imperial fabric apart thread by thread. The final fatal act was written in the blood-soaked trenches of the First World War. A misguided alliance with the Central Powers led to a devastating defeat. The victors, in their cold geopolitical calculus, carved up the once mighty empire, its vast territories scattered like dust in the wind. In 1922, the last Sultan, Mehmed VI, departed his palace into exile, and 6 centuries of continuous Ottoman rule came to a quiet, somber end. But to say the empire is gone is to misunderstand the nature of history. The Ottoman Empire is not dead, it has merely transformed. Its ghost lingers, its echo resonates in the very fabric of our modern world, a profound and complex inheritance that continues to shape nations, cultures, and even conflicts. Its legacy lives on in the crossroads of East and West. You can see it in the breathtaking skyline of Istanbul, where the magnificent domes and minarets of the Süleymaniye and the Blue Mosque still reach for the heavens, a testament to an age of unparalleled architectural genius. You can walk through the courtyards of the Topkapi Palace, where whispers of conquest, intrigue, and unimaginable power still seem to hang in the air. This physical legacy extends far beyond Turkey, etched into the stone of bridges in Bosnia, the caravanserais of Syria, and the city walls of Jerusalem. You can taste its legacy in the rich, dark coffee served in cafes from Sarajevo to Damascus, a ritual and a flavor spread across the globe by Ottoman merchants. You can savor it in the sweet, layered perfection of baklava, a dessert perfected in the imperial kitchens. You hear its influence in the haunting melodies of classical Turkish music, a sophisticated fusion of Persian, Byzantine, and Arabic traditions. The empire was a crucible of cultures, a grand synthesizer that absorbed and reshaped art, cuisine, and customs, creating a unique cultural tapestry that continues to enrich the world. The political legacy is perhaps the most contentious and enduring. The modern borders of the Middle East and the Balkans are a direct consequence of the empire's collapse. Lines drawn in the sand by foreign powers that often ignored centuries of local history and ethnic coexistence, planting the seeds of future conflicts. The Ottoman millet system, which granted religious communities a degree of autonomy, left a complex model of identity that both informs and complicates the politics of the region today. And from the ashes of the empire rose the Republic of Turkey, a fiercely secular modern nation-state forged by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, a man who was himself a product of the Ottoman military system he helped to dismantle. His revolution was a direct response to the empire's perceived failings, yet it was also intrinsically shaped by its institutions. The story of the Ottomans is a powerful reminder that no empire is eternal. It is a lesson in the delicate balance between tradition and innovation, centralization and diversity, power and decay. It teaches us that history is not a collection of bygone facts, but a living force that shapes our present and informs our future. The questions the Ottomans faced about identity, faith, governance, and coexistence are questions we still grapple with today. Our journey through the annals of history is far from over. To continue exploring the great civilizations that have shaped our world, subscribe now and join our community. Don't miss our next epic documentary, where we travel from the crossroads of Europe and Asia to the soaring peaks of the Andes, to uncover the secrets of a civilization built on mountains and gold, the Inca Empire. Subscribe for more epic history documentaries, hit the bell to never miss an episode.